The December wind cut through my coat like it had a personal vendetta. I stood outside Il Diamante, watching luxury sedans glide up to the valet stand, their heated interiors a world I'd never touch. My shift started in 3 minutes, which meant I was already late by the standards of people who measured time in money instead of exhaustion. Inside, the warmth hit me like a wall, perfumed air, low amber lighting, the clink of crystal that cost more than my rent. I tied my apron with numb fingers, catching my reflection in the gilded mirror by the coat check. Dark circles, hair scraped back, the kind of invisible that expensive people preferred in their service staff. "Table 12 needs water," Marco hissed, shoving a tray at me. "And don't look at them, especially him." I didn't ask who him was. In places like this, there was always a him, someone whose presence bent the room's gravity, whose displeasure could end careers with a word. Table 12 sat in the corner booth, the one with sightlines to every entrance. 4 men in suits that whispered instead of shouted wealth. But my eyes caught on the fifth figure, the one facing the room with the stillness of a predator who knew nothing would surprise him. His cologne reached me first, cedar and something darker, expensive and deliberate. He was younger than I expected, maybe 35, with the kind of face that made you forget the word handsome existed because it was insufficient. Sharp jaw, dark hair touched with silver at the temples, eyes the color of espresso that missed nothing. I poured water with steady hands, the muscle memory of 1,000 shifts overriding my awareness that he was watching me. Not looking, watching. There was a difference. "Stai attenta," one of his men muttered into his phone. "La ragazza non sa niente," be careful, the girl knows nothing. My hand didn't shake. I'd learned that trick young, how to become furniture, how to let words slide past like I didn't understand. My grandmother's lessons, delivered in the Tuscan Italian of her childhood, were my secret. People said everything around invisible women. "I grave solo un'altra cameriera stupida," another man added with a laugh. "Just another stupid waitress." I set down the final glass, my face a careful blank. The man at the center, him, tilted his head slightly. His gaze felt like a physical touch, assessing, calculating. Then my phone buzzed against my hip. Once, twice, the emergency pattern. My heart dropped into my stomach. I stepped back from the table, already reaching for my apron pocket with shaking fingers. "Pronto?" I answered, forgetting everything. The table, the rules, the performance of invisibility. "Lucia," my aunt's voice cracked. "I grave tua nonna, l'ospital dice," your grandmother, the hospital says. "Quanto tempo," how much time? The booth had gone silent. I felt it like a temperature drop, but I couldn't care. Couldn't think past the roaring in my ears. "Forse giorni, forse ore," days, maybe hours. My vision blurred. "Arrivo subito," I'm coming now. I ended the call, my hand pressed to my mouth. The tray slipped from my fingers, hitting the floor with a crash that shattered the restaurant's perfect ambience. Water spread across marble, crystal fragments catching the light like fallen stars. "Mi dispiace," I whispered. "I'm sorry." To Marco, to the restaurant, to the grandmother who'd raised me and was now dying alone because I couldn't afford the taxi to the hospital, let alone the bills that were drowning us. I bent to pick up the pieces, my hands clumsy, and a shoe appeared in my line of vision. Handmade leather, Italian, probably worth more than my monthly salary. "Lascia stare, leave it." I looked up, him. He'd stood, all 6 feet of tailored danger, and was holding out a hand. His voice was quiet, but it carried command like some men carried weapons. "Vieni con me, come with me." "I can't, my shift is over." He switched to English, his accent rolling through the words like distant thunder. "You need to get to the hospital. I have a car." "I don't even know you." Something flickered in those dark eyes. Amusement, maybe. "No, but I know you understand every word my associate said, which makes you either very brave or very foolish, Lucia." He knew my name. He'd heard everything. I should have been terrified. Instead, I took his hand. His grip was warm, steady, and when he pulled me to my feet, his other hand settled at the small of my back, proprietary and protective in equal measure. He guided me through the restaurant like he owned it, which I suddenly suspected he did. "Get her coat," he said to someone, and it appeared. "Clear traffic to St. Catherine's," he said into his phone, and I heard the snap of obedience in his tone. The December air hit us, but before I could shiver, I was being handed into a car that smelled like leather and money. He slid in beside me, close enough that I felt his heat. "Gracie," I managed, "thank you." "Don't thank me yet, Lucia." He pulled out his phone, typing something with quick fingers. "We're going to have a conversation after you see your grandmother, about what you heard, about what you're worth." The car pulled away from the curb, and I realized I just made a deal with the devil. I just wasn't sure yet what I'd traded. The car moved through Boston streets like it had diplomatic immunity, traffic parting in ways that made me suspect money wasn't the only currency being spent. He sat beside me in silence, his presence filling the space between us with unspoken questions. My phone lit up with a text from the hospital, "Third floor, room 304, stable for now." "She's stable," I said, my voice cracking on the relief. "Good." He didn't look up from his phone. "My associate is already there, ensuring she has a private room. The night nurse is being replaced with someone competent." I turned to stare at him. "You can't just—" "I already did." He met my eyes, and I saw something there that wasn't cruelty. It was simpler and somehow more dangerous: capability. "Your grandmother is 83, yes. Congestive heart failure, inadequate care due to insurance limitations." "How do you—" "I make it my business to know things, Lucia." He pocketed his phone. "Especially about people who speak fluent Italian in my presence and pretend they don't." I wasn't pretending, I was surviving. "Fair enough." The corner of his mouth lifted, not quite a smile. "I respect survival, it's a language I speak fluently." The car pulled up to St. Catherine's emergency entrance. Before I could reach for the door, he was already out, offering his hand again. That same gesture, courtly and commanding. Inside, the fluorescent lights made everything harsh and real. But a woman in an expensive suit was waiting, clipboard in hand, and she nodded to him like he was royalty. "Mr. Damiani, room 304 is ready. Dr. Petrova is reviewing the charts now." "Good, Lucia, this is Alina. She'll handle the administrative matters while you see your grandmother." I wanted to argue, to ask what administrative matters, what this was costing, what he wanted in return. But my feet were already moving toward the elevator, pulled by the need to see Nana breathing, alive, mine for a little longer. He followed me, of course he did. The third floor was quiet, the kind of quiet that hospitals get after visiting hours when death does its waiting in private. Room 304 had a window, a real chair, and equipment that looked newer than anything I'd seen in my previous desperate visits. Nana was asleep, her face peaceful against white pillows. She looked smaller than I remembered, as if she were already leaving, molecule by molecule. I sank into the chair and took her hand. It was cool, papery, marked with age spots and old scars from a lifetime of work. "Stellina," she murmured without opening her eyes. "Little star, her name for me since childhood. You smell like winter." I came as fast as I could. "I know." Her eyes opened, surprisingly clear. "Your young man brought you." "He's not." I glanced back at Damiani, who stood in the doorway like a well-dressed sentinel. "He's not mine, Nana." She smiled, that knowing smile that had seen through every lie I'd ever told. "Not yet." Damiani cleared his throat. "Mrs. Ferraro, I'm Alessandro Damiani. I'm going to make sure you have excellent care. Lucia will explain the details when you're stronger." "Damiani," Nana repeated, her voice sharpening. "From Milano." "Originally, yes." Something passed between them, recognition, maybe, or memory. Then Nana squeezed my hand. "Talk to him, Lucia. He's here for a reason." "Rest," I said, kissing her forehead. "I'll be right outside." In the hallway, under lights that made us both look like ghosts, Alessandro Damiani leaned against the wall and studied me with those calculating eyes. "Your grandmother knows my family," he said. "Apparently. And you speak Italian like you were born to it, work in a restaurant that caters to people like me, and need money desperately enough to listen to conversations you shouldn't hear." He pushed off the wall, closing the distance between us. "Which makes you either an asset or a liability." "I'm a waitress trying to keep my grandmother alive." "You're more than that." He pulled a card from his jacket, heavy stock with embossed lettering, a phone number, nothing else. "I have a proposition. Tomorrow, 10 a.m., this address. Come alone. And if I don't, then your grandmother receives excellent care regardless, and you walk away from this conversation with no obligations." He paused. "But I don't think you will, because I saw your face when my men called you stupid and you understood every word. You have something to prove, Lucia Ferraro." He was right, and I hated that he was right. "What kind of proposition?" "The kind that pays $50,000 for 3 months of your time. Translation services, cultural consultation, presence at business meetings." His smile was sharp. "All legal, mostly boring, absolutely necessary." "Why me?" "Because you're invisible until you're not. Because you need money I have, and I need someone who can navigate between worlds." He stepped back, giving me space to breathe. "And because when my men insulted you, you didn't flinch. You stayed professional. That kind of control is rare." The card was heavy in my hand. A phone number and tomorrow's consequences. 10 a.m., he said again. "The address is in Back Bay. Come hungry. We'll have breakfast while we discuss terms." Then he was gone, his cologne lingering in the antiseptic air like a promise and a warning. I looked down at the card. Alessandro Damiani. No title, no company name, just the arrogance of someone who didn't need to explain himself. Nana was watching me when I returned. "You'll go," she said. It wasn't a question. "I don't know yet." "Yes, you do." She closed her eyes, smiling. "You're my granddaughter. We don't refuse chances, Stellina. We take them and make them ours." I stayed until she slept, then took the bus home to my studio apartment with its peeling paint and broken heater. The card sat on my bedside table, glowing in the streetlight like a test I'd already decided to take. At 9:45 the next morning, I stood outside an address in Back Bay that turned out to be a brownstone worth several $1,000,000. I was about to find out what Alessandro Damiani wanted badly enough to buy. The door opened before I could knock. Elena, the woman from the hospital, stood in the doorway wearing another immaculate suit and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Miss Ferraro, Mr. Damiani is expecting you." The interior was all dark wood and tasteful art, the kind of place that whispered old money even though I suspected Alessandro's wealth was considerably newer. She led me through a hallway lined with photographs, black and white images of Milano, Roma, small villages I half recognized from Nana's stories. We emerged into a dining room where morning light spilled across a table set for two. Alessandro stood by the window, phone to his ear, speaking rapid Italian about shipping schedules and customs delays. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, looking more dangerous somehow in casual dress than in last night's armor of a suit. He ended the call when he saw me. "Lucia, sit, coffee." "Please." Elena poured from a silver pot, the coffee dark and perfect, then vanished like smoke. Alessandro took the seat across from me, close enough that I could see the thin scar along his jaw, the tired lines around his eyes that suggested he didn't sleep much. "Your grandmother had a good night," he said. Dr. Petrova says she's strong enough for a consultation this afternoon with a specialist I'm bringing in from Zurich. I set down my coffee cup with shaking hands. You can't keep doing this. Can't I? I don't even know what you want. Yes, you do. He leaned back, studying me. You're intelligent, Lucia. You've already guessed. I need someone who can move between worlds. Someone who looks American, speaks Italian like a native, and understands how to be invisible when necessary. Someone who needs money badly enough to take risks but has enough pride to maintain boundaries. Translation work doesn't usually require invisibility. True, he smiled, and it transformed his face from dangerous to devastating. But I'm not usual, and neither is my work. What kind of work? Import-export, luxury goods mostly, art, wine, furniture. I help wealthy Europeans navigate American markets and vice versa. He paused. Some of my clients prefer discretion. They're not all entirely law-abiding, but my business is legitimate. I wanted to believe him. God help me, I wanted to. 50,000 for 3 months. Yes, plus expenses, wardrobe, travel, housing if you want it. Your grandmother's care is separate. That's not negotiable. Why? Because using her as leverage would make me the kind of man I refuse to be. His voice hardened. You'll work for me because you choose to, or not at all. I looked at him across the table, this beautiful, dangerous man who'd appeared in my life like an answer to a prayer I'd been too tired to say. What are the terms? You accompany me to business meetings, dinners, occasionally cultural events. You translate, you observe, you report anything unusual. You're professional, discreet, and you follow my security protocols without question. Security protocols. Elena will go over them. They're standard for someone in my position. He pulled out a folder, sliding it across the table. Contract drafted by my lawyers. Read it thoroughly. Take it to your own lawyer if you have one. I'll cover the consultation fee. I opened the folder. The contract was dense with legalese, but certain phrases jumped out. Non-disclosure agreement, termination clauses, liability waivers. Standard for any high-level assistant position, probably. Probably. What happens after 3 months? Depends on whether we work well together. If we do, we discuss longer-term arrangements. If we don't, you walk away with your money and excellent references. He leaned forward. And your grandmother will have had 3 months of care that extends her life and her comfort. That's not nothing. It wasn't, it was everything. I need 24 hours to think. No, you don't. His voice was quiet, but it cut through my pretense like a blade. You've already decided. You decided last night when you took my hand, and again when you showed up here this morning. What you need is permission to take what you want without feeling guilty about it. You don't know me. I know survival. I know what it looks like when someone is drowning and finally sees a rope. He stood, crossing to a sideboard and returning with an envelope. $10,000. Advance on your first month's salary. Consider it a signing bonus. I stared at the envelope like it might explode. I haven't signed yet. You will. He placed it beside my coffee cup. Elena will take you shopping this afternoon. You'll need clothes for tonight. We have dinner with clients from Firenze. Consider it your audition. That's incredibly presumptuous. Yes. He moved to the window, his back to me, and I saw the tension in his shoulders. But I'm rarely wrong about people, Lucia. I wasn't wrong about you. I picked up the envelope. It was heavy with promise and consequences. One condition, I said. I meet this specialist from Zurich before I agree to anything else. I want to know exactly what kind of care my grandmother will receive. He turned, and something like respect flickered in his expression. Fair. Dr. Weber arrives at 2. I'll have Elena drive you to the hospital. I stood, the envelope clutched in my hand. If I do this, Mr. Damiani, I need to be clear. I'm not for sale. You're buying my time, my skills, my discretion. Not me. Understood. He crossed back to me, stopping close enough that I had to tilt my head to meet his eyes. But Lucia, you should know, the most valuable things in my world are the ones that choose to stay, not the ones I buy. His hand came up, fingers brushing my jaw in a touch so brief I might have imagined it. Then he stepped back, professional distance restored. Alina will handle everything. Sign the contract when you're ready. Welcome to my world. I left with the envelope, the contract, and the sudden terrifying certainty that I'd just crossed a line I couldn't uncross. By the time Alina dropped me back at my apartment that evening, I barely recognized myself. The shopping trip had been methodical, efficient, and expensive. 3 designer dresses, shoes that didn't hurt, a coat that actually kept out the cold. Alina had opinions on everything and the budget to enforce them. Mr. Damiani prefers classic elegance, she'd said, steering me away from anything too trendy. You're representing him now. That means quality, discretion, and confidence. Now I stood in front of my bathroom mirror, wearing a black dress that hugged my curves without screaming, heels that added 3 inches and a decade of sophistication, and makeup that Alina's recommended stylist had applied with the precision of an artist. I looked like I belonged in Alessandro's world. I wasn't sure if that was thrilling or terrifying. The car arrived at 7, right on time. Not a taxi, a town car with a driver who knew my name and held the door like I mattered. The city looked different from behind tinted windows, softer somehow, less cruel. We pulled up to a restaurant in the seaport, all glass and modern lines, the kind of place where reservations ran months deep unless you were someone. Alessandro stood outside, checking his phone, and when he looked up and saw me stepping from the car, something crossed his face too quick to name. He met me on the sidewalk, his eyes traveling over me with an assessment that felt more like a caress. "Good," he said simply. Then quieter, "You look beautiful, Lucia." "Alina has excellent taste." "Alina follows instructions." He offered his arm. "The clients tonight are old family friends. The Caselli's father and son importing Tuscan wines. They're traditional, so expect some old-world courtesy." "Meaning?" "Meaning they'll try to charm you, possibly flirt, definitely test whether you're just decoration or actually useful." His hand settled at the small of my back, that gesture again as we walked toward the entrance. "Show them useful." Inside, the Casellas were waiting at a corner table. An older man with silver hair and laugh lines, and a younger version who had the cocky handsomeness of someone who'd never been told no. "Alessandro," the father stood, embracing him with genuine warmth. "And who is this?" "Lucia Ferraro, my new associate. Lucia, Marco, and Dante Caselli." I shook hands, nodding the elder Casella's grip, firm but respectful, and the lingering a beat too long. "Ferraro," Marco said thoughtfully as we sat. "From where in Italy?" "My grandmother's from Montepulciano originally." His face lit up. "Ah, the heart of wine country, you must know." We fell into conversation, the elder Caselli delighted to find someone who understood terroir and vintage beyond marketing copy. Dante watched with increasing annoyance as his father, and I discussed the challenges of exporting small-batch wines, the regulations, the cultural gaps. Alessandro sat back silent, but I felt his attention like heat. When our food arrived, Dante leaned close. "So, Lucia, how does a beautiful girl from Boston end up working for Alessandro Damiani?" "Talent," Alessandro said before I could answer, his voice carrying a warning edge. "And discretion, 2 qualities I value highly." "Of course," Dante said, but his smirk suggested he'd heard other stories about Alessandro's female associates. Marco, bless him, redirected. "We're expanding into the American market. Alessandro suggested you might help us navigate certain cultural difficulties." "I'd be happy to consult," I said. "What specific challenges are you facing?" We talked business. Real business, distribution networks, licensing, relationship management. Marco was sharp, asking pointed questions about American wine culture, regional preferences, how to position luxury goods in a market obsessed with value. I answered honestly, drawing on years of watching wealthy customers at the restaurant, understanding what they wanted versus what they bought. Alessandro had been right. I did understand how to navigate between worlds. Halfway through dessert, Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then at Alessandro, something passing between them. "Excuse me," Alessandro said, standing. "Lucia, would you join me?" We left the Casellas at the table, moving through the restaurant toward a private room in the back. Inside, a man I didn't recognize sat with a laptop open, looking worried. "Problem," the man said without preamble. "The Calabrian shipment. Customs flagged it." Alessandro's face went cold. "Why?" "Paperwork discrepancy. Someone filed a tip." "Who?" "Guessing Rossi. He's been making noise about your Forenza contracts." I stood very still, understanding that I was seeing something I probably shouldn't. Alessandro glanced at me, some calculation happening behind those dark eyes. "Lucia, I need you to call the customs office. Use your American accent, claim you're from the importing company. Find out exactly what they have and what they need to clear it." "Is the shipment legal?" "Yes, but the tip wasn't about legality. It was about delay and reputation damage." He handed me a phone. "You want to prove you're useful, this is how." I took the phone, made the call, played the part of a harried assistant trying to fix a paperwork snafu. The customs agent was sympathetic, ultimately helpful, and gave me exactly what Alessandro needed, the name of the teepster and the specific document that was missing. When I hung up, Alessandro was smiling. "Good work," he turned to his associate. "Handle it. I want that shipment cleared by morning." Back at the table, the Casellas were finishing their wine. Marco stood when we returned, reading something in Alessandro's face. "Everything good?" "Better than good." Alessandro's hand found my back again as we said our goodbyes. Lucia just saved us a significant headache. In the car afterward, he poured me scotch from a crystal decanter built into the backseat. "You didn't hesitate." "Should I have?" Most people would have asked more questions, worried about legality, consequences. "I asked if it was legal, you said yes. I chose to trust you." I sipped the scotch, feeling it burn. "Was that a test?" "Everything is a test in my world." He studied me over his glass. "You passed." "What would have happened if I'd refused?" "I would have handled it another way, and I wouldn't have blamed you." He set down his glass. "But I'm glad you didn't refuse, Lucia." The car pulled up to my apartment building with its broken security door and flickering hallway lights. Alessandro looked out at it, his expression unreadable. "Alina is arranging a new place for you, somewhere safe, closer to your grandmother." "I didn't ask for that." "No, but you need it and I can provide it. Don't mistake necessity for charity." He leaned forward. "Same time tomorrow. We're meeting with another client, this one less friendly. Wear the blue dress." I climbed out, but his voice stopped me. "Lucia, lock your door tonight. And if anyone asks questions about me or our arrangement, you don't know anything beyond what I've told you. Understand?" A chill ran through me that had nothing to do with December air. "I understand." I watched the car disappear, then trudged up to my apartment and did exactly as he said. Locked the door, checked the windows, and lay awake wondering what I'd actually agreed to. The next morning, Dr. Weber arrived at St. Catherine's like an answer from a medical journal. Tall, precise, German-accented English, the kind of doctor who made other doctors look like they'd gotten their degrees from a cereal box. Alessandro had introduced us, then stepped back to let the specialist work. Nana charmed him within minutes. She had that gift, making anyone feel like the most important person in the room, even when she was the one in the hospital bed. Dr. Weber examined her charts, asked questions, listened with the kind of attention that suggested he actually cared. Then he looked at me with serious eyes. Your grandmother's condition is manageable with proper care. The heart failure is progressive, but we can slow it significantly. She needs better medication, regular monitoring, and reduced stress. He paused. Mr. Damiani has arranged for me to oversee her care remotely, with a local cardiologist handling day-to-day. She could have years, Miss Ferraro, quality years. I couldn't speak past the tightness in my throat. Thank you, I finally managed. He patted my shoulder with unexpected kindness. Your grandmother is a remarkable woman. It's my privilege. After he left, Nana pulled me close. You signed his contract. Yes. Good, she touched my face. Alessandro Damiani is dangerous, Stellina, but not to you. Do you understand the difference? I'm not sure. You will, she smiled. His father was the same way. Dangerous to the world, gentle with what mattered. It's in their blood, this need to protect and control. You'll have to teach him the difference. You knew his father. Her eyes grew distant. That's a story for another day, when you're ready to hear it. Alessandro appeared in the doorway, patient and inevitable. Ready. I kissed Nana's forehead and followed him out. In the elevator, I turned to face him. My grandmother knew your father. I know. His expression was carefully neutral. She worked for his family in Milano before she came to America, before I was born. Why didn't you tell me? Because it wasn't relevant to our arrangement, and because some histories are better left in the past. The elevator doors opened. But if you want to know, ask her. I won't stand in the way of truth. The blue dress Alina had bought was waiting in the car, crushed velvet, elegant, the kind of thing that made you feel powerful just wearing it. Alessandro turned away while I changed in the backseat, the privacy screen up, and when I emerged, his eyes went dark with something that wasn't quite professional appreciation. Where are we going? I asked. Beacon Hill, private collector, old Boston money, new interest in Italian antiquities. He adjusted his cufflinks, a nervous gesture that humanized him. She's difficult, suspicious, likes to test people. What am I testing for? Whether I'm legitimate or just another charming criminal trying to sell her stolen artifacts. His smile was sharp. Your job is to be yourself, intelligent, honest, American. Convince her I'm worth trusting. The house was a Federal-era mansion, all brick and black shutters, the kind of old money that didn't need to prove anything. A housekeeper led us to a sitting room where a woman in her 70s sat with a book of Renaissance art. Mr. Damiani. Her voice was cultured, cool, punctual. I appreciate that. Mrs. Wentworth, thank you for seeing me. This is my associate, Lucia Ferraro. She studied me with eyes that missed nothing. Ferraro, Italian. My grandmother's family. I grew up hearing stories about Montepulciano. She gestured for us to sit. Mr. Damiani claims he can source a Caravaggio sketch for my collection. I'm skeptical of such claims. Alessandro opened a leather portfolio, spreading photographs across her coffee table. Not a Caravaggio, but a credible attribution to his workshop, authenticated by 3 independent experts. The provenance is clean, private collection in Firenze, owned by the same family since 1780. She leaned forward, her interest caught. They talked technique, period details, artistic context. I watched Alessandro transform into someone who genuinely understood art, not just as commodity but as beauty. And the price? Mrs. Wentworth asked. He named a figure that made my stomach drop. She didn't blink. I'll need to verify the authentication myself. Of course, Lucia will coordinate with your team. She speaks fluent Italian and understands the cultural nuances that sometimes get lost in translation. Mrs. Wentworth turned to me. You've studied art history. No, ma'am, but I grew up listening to my grandmother's stories about Italian churches, their paintings, the way art was woven into daily life. I understand the context, if not the academics." She smiled for the first time. "Honesty, how refreshing." To Alessandro, "I'll consider your offer. Have Miss Ferrero contact my curator next week." Outside, Alessandro exhaled like he'd been holding his breath. "Well done." "I didn't do anything." "You were genuine. In a world of performance, authenticity is currency." He opened the car door. "And now I'm taking you to lunch, somewhere we can actually talk." He took me to a small Italian place in the North End, the kind of neighborhood restaurant where everyone knew him. The owner greeted him with a hug, seated us at a corner table, brought wine without asking. "You come here often," I observed. "My father brought me here when I was young, before everything became complicated." He poured wine, his movements easy in this space. "This is the only place in Boston where I'm just Alessandro, not Damiani the businessman. Or Damiani the criminal." He smiled. "You've been doing research." "I'd be stupid not to. Your name comes up in interesting contexts." "I'm sure it does." He didn't deny anything. "My family has history, some of it honorable, some less so. I'm trying to build something different, legitimate businesses, clean money, a legacy that doesn't end in prison or worse." "But you still work with people who aren't clean." "I navigate. There's a difference." He leaned back. "The world isn't black and white, Lucia. It's 1,000 shades of gray, and survival means understanding which shades will destroy you and which will just stain a little." "That's a depressing philosophy." "It's a realistic one." He reached across the table, his fingers brushing mine. "But you already know that. You grew up working class in a city designed for the wealthy. You've navigated your own shades of gray." He was right, and I hated how easily he saw through me. Our food arrived. Handmade pasta, simple sauce, the kind of cooking that spoke of tradition rather than trend. We ate in comfortable silence, the kind that suggested we'd known each other longer than 2 days. "Tell me about your grandmother," Alessandro said eventually. So I did. I told him about Nana teaching me Italian in our tiny kitchen, about her stories of Tuscany, about the pride she took in her work even when that work was cleaning houses for people who looked through her. "She sounds remarkable." "She is. She's the reason I survived this long. And now I'm helping you save her." His voice was quiet. "Do you resent that, the debt?" "I don't know yet." I met his eyes. "You said you're not buying me, but this feels like ownership with better terms." "Fair." He set down his fork. "Here's the truth, Lucia. I need you for legitimate business reasons. Your language skills, your cultural knowledge, your ability to read people. But I also saw someone drowning, and I have the resources to throw a rope. If that creates debt in your mind, we can discuss terms. But from my perspective, helping someone capable become more capable benefits us both." "That's very convenient logic." "It's honest logic." He leaned forward. "In 3 months you'll have money, experience, connections. You'll be more valuable to yourself than you are to me. I'm investing in potential, not buying loyalty." "And if I walk away after 3 months?" "Then I'll write you an excellent reference and wish you well." His smile was dangerous again. "But I don't think you will. I think you'll find you like my world more than you expected." He wasn't wrong. I was already starting to see the appeal, the power of moving through spaces that had been closed to me, the thrill of being useful rather than invisible. We were finishing dessert when Alessandro's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. "We need to leave now." "What's wrong?" "Someone's watching us." He stood, dropping cash on the table. "Stay close." He guided me out through the kitchen, his hand firm at my back, past surprised cooks and out a service door into an alley. A car was already waiting, not the town car, something faster. Inside, he made 3 phone calls in rapid Italian, his voice clipped and commanding. I caught enough to understand someone named Rossi had escalated from nuisance to threat. "Am I in danger?" I asked when he finished. "Not while you're with me." He looked at me, something fierce in his expression. But this is the reality of my world, Lucia. Sometimes the gray shades turn dark without warning. If you want out, tell me now. I thought about Nana in her hospital bed, about Dr. Weber's promise of years, about my studio apartment and the future I'd had before Alessandro appeared, limited, suffocating, safe. I'm not leaving, I said. His hand found mine in the darkness. Then hold on, things are about to get interesting. The car sped through Boston streets, and I realized I'd just chosen the storm over the shore. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt alive for the first time in years. The car took us to a building in the financial district, all steel and glass, and the kind of security that suggested the businesses inside valued privacy over transparency. Alessandro kept his hand on my back as we moved through the lobby, into a private elevator that required a keycard. "Where are we?" I asked. "My office, safer than moving around the city right now." The elevator climbed. "Rossi is making a play. He knows I'm vulnerable while establishing new contracts." "Vulnerable how?" "Reputation. In my business, trust is everything. If he can make me look unstable, unprofessional, or worse, criminal, my clients disappear." The doors opened to a penthouse suite with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the harbor. "He's been spreading rumors, interfering with shipments, trying to position himself as the more reliable alternative." The office was elegant, masculine, surprisingly understated. Dark wood, leather furniture, art that suggested actual taste rather than decorator convenience. Alessandro moved to a bar, pouring scotch. "Drink," he said, handing me a glass. "You handled that well, most people panic." My grandmother raised me on stories about men like Rossi, small-minded bullies who mistake cruelty for power. I sipped the scotch. She always said the truly dangerous men were the quiet ones. "Your grandmother is wise." He stood at the window, his silhouette dark against the city lights. "Rossi thinks forcing my hand will make him look strong. He doesn't understand that real power is knowing when to wait and when to strike." "What are you going to do?" "Nothing yet." He turned to face me. "He'll make a mistake. They always do when they're performing for an audience." Elena appeared with files, her expression tight. The Caselli shipment cleared, but Rossi filed a complaint with the licensing board about the wine distribution deal. "Of course he did." Alessandro's voice was ice. "Document everything. I want a paper trail that shows every frivolous complaint, every interference. We'll bury him in his own bureaucratic weapons." She nodded and left. Alessandro rubbed his face, suddenly looking tired. "You should go home," he said. "I have work to finish here." "I can stay if you need me." "Lucia?" He crossed to where I stood, close enough that I could smell his cologne, see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "I appreciate the offer, but if you stay, it changes things." "Changes them how?" "Because right now, you're my employee. Professional distance, clear boundaries." His hand came up, fingers tracing my jaw. "If you stay while I'm drinking scotch and watching you in that blue dress, I stop being your boss and start being a man who wants things he shouldn't." My breath caught. Maybe I want things I shouldn't too. "You don't know what you want yet." But his thumb brushed my lower lip, gentle and deliberate. "You're still deciding if I'm worth the risk." "Are you?" "I don't know." His honesty was more devastating than seduction would have been. "I'm trying to be better than my father, but the blood is still there, the instinct to take, to keep, to control what matters." He stepped back, breaking the moment. "Go home. Let me be the responsible one tonight." I wanted to argue, to stay and see what happened when the professional masks came off. But he was right. I didn't know yet what I wanted beyond the immediate pull of his gravity. "Tomorrow?" I asked. "Tomorrow we meet with the Lombardis. Another test, another performance." His smile was tired. "Wear the gray dress, and Lucia, thank you for not panicking today." The car service took me to the new apartment Elena had arranged, a furnished one-bedroom in the South End, walking distance from the hospital. It was beautiful, safe, nothing like my old place. I stood at the window, looking out at my new neighborhood, and tried to figure out who I was becoming. My phone buzzed. Alessandro. Sleep well, you did good work today. Simple words, but they settled something inside me. I texted back, you too, try to get some rest. His response came immediately, not likely, but I'll try. I fell asleep thinking about the way his thumb had felt on my lip, about the restraint it had taken for both of us to walk away. The Lombardi meeting was in Cambridge, at a restaurant that catered to professors and professionals, the kind of place where intellectual conversation was currency. The family consisted of 3 brothers, all in their 40s, all sharp-eyed and suspicious. You're very young, the eldest said to me after introductions, for someone in your position. I'm very good at my job, I replied calmly. Age and competence aren't always correlated. Alessandro's lips quirked, but he stayed silent, letting me navigate. We discussed their family's furniture business, high-end reproductions of Renaissance pieces, custom work for museums and collectors. They needed help penetrating the American museum market, understanding the politics of acquisitions and exhibitions. Museums move slowly, I explained. The key is relationship building. You need someone who speaks their language, conservation, provenance, educational value, not just beauty but scholarship. And you speak this language? The middle brother asked skeptically. I understand the culture. I've spent years watching how wealth operates, what justifications people need to spend money on art versus furniture versus status. I leaned forward. Your pieces are beautiful, but American museums will want the story behind them, the artisan tradition, the historical accuracy, the educational component. I can help you craft that narrative. By the end of lunch, they were interested. Not committed, but interested. Alessandro walked me out while the brothers stayed to discuss terms. You were brilliant, he said quietly. I was honest, they respond to that. Most people in my business don't. He checked his phone, frowned. I need to handle something. Can you get yourself back to the office? Of course. He hesitated, then leaned in, his lips brushing my cheek. Thank you, Lucia, for all of this. The gesture was casual, almost brotherly, but I felt it like a brand. I took the tea back downtown, thinking about museums and narratives and the story I was building with Alessandro. When I reached his building, Alina met me with worry in her eyes. Where is he? She asked. He said he had to handle something. Why? Because Rossi just posted on social media that Alessandro's businesses are under investigation. It's not true, but the damage is done. I understood reputation warfare. What can I do? Nothing right now. He's meeting with his lawyers and his accountant. This is going to get worse before it gets better. I spent the afternoon in Alessandro's office, watching the harbor and trying not to imagine him dealing with whatever fresh hell Rossi had created. By the time he returned at 7, he looked like he'd aged a decade. It's handled, he said, pouring whiskey, for now. Elena told me. Of course she did. He drank, his movements sharp. Rossi is escalating. He filed formal complaints, contacted my clients directly, leaked false information to a reporter. It's textbook character assassination. What's your next move? Patience and documentation. He looked at me. But that means keeping you clean. If he finds out about you, he'll try to use you as proof I'm reckless or corrupt. I can handle it. No, his voice was firm. This is my fight. I won't make you collateral damage. I crossed to where he stood, taking the glass from his hand. Alessandro, I signed the contract. I knew the risks. Don't protect me by making me useless. He studied me, something shifting in his expression. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone more breakable. He touched my face, the gesture becoming familiar. You're steel wrapped in silk, Lucia. It's dangerous how much I'm starting to rely on that. Then rely on it, let me help. He kissed me then, nothing gentle about it, fierce and claiming and desperate. I kissed back, my hands fisting in his shirt, all the tension of the past week igniting between us. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. "This is a mistake," he said. "Probably. You're my employee. I know. If this goes wrong, then we'll deal with it." I kissed him again, softer, "But right now I'm choosing this, choosing you." He pulled back, his thumb tracing my swollen lip. "Not here. Not like this when I'm angry and you're trying to fix me." "I'm not trying to fix you." "Aren't you?" His smile was sad. "You see someone struggling and you want to help. It's who you are. But Lucia, I'm not a project. And this," he gestured between us, "needs to be more than adrenaline and proximity." He was right, even though I didn't want him to be. "Okay," I said, "so we wait." "We wait." He kissed my forehead. "And in the meantime, I need to show you something tomorrow morning. It's important." "What?" "Trust me." I thought about everything that had happened since that night at the restaurant. The risks, the rewards, the way my life had tilted on its axis. "Yes," I said, "I trust you." His expression softened. "Then go home, get some sleep. Tomorrow we visit your grandmother together, and then I show you who I really am." I left not knowing what that meant, but knowing I'd follow him anyway into whatever he needed to reveal. Because somewhere between the hospital and the office, between danger and desire, I'd stopped seeing Alessandro Damiani as just my employer. I'd started seeing him as mine. The morning was cold and clear, the kind of winter day that made Boston look like a postcard. Alessandro picked me up in a different car, an older Mercedes, elegant but lived in, the kind of vehicle that suggested personal choice rather than business necessity. "No driver?" I asked, sliding into the passenger seat. "Today is personal." He pulled into traffic, navigating with the ease of someone who knew the city's rhythms. "We'll see your grandmother first, then I take you somewhere that matters." At the hospital, Nana was sitting up, color in her cheeks, looking stronger than she had in months. Dr. Weber's care was working miracles. "Alessandro," she said, smiling, "come sit. Lucia's been keeping secrets." "Only good ones, I hope." He settled into the chair beside her bed with surprising comfort, like he'd visited before. "She hasn't told me you're courting her." I choked on air. "Nana, he's my boss." "I know how men look at women, Stellina. This one looks at you like his father looked at." She stopped, her eyes going distant. "At who?" I prompted. She shook her head. "Old history, but Alessandro, you should know, your father made me a promise once, before everything went wrong. He said if he ever had a son, he'd teach him to be better than he was. Looks like he tried." Alessandro went very still. "You knew him well." "Better than most. I was supposed to marry him once before his family decided a housekeeper's daughter wasn't suitable." No bitterness in her voice, just fact. "He married the woman they chose, had you, built his empire, but he never forgot his promises." I looked between them, understanding dawning. "That's why you helped us, not just because I speak Italian, but because of her." "Partly," Alessandro admitted. "When I heard the name Ferraro, I remembered. My father talked about her sometimes, the girl he'd loved who understood him before the power corrupted everything." He took Nana's hand. "He asked me once near the end to look after you if I could. I didn't know you had a granddaughter until that night at the restaurant." "Fate," Nana said firmly, "or God's humor. Either way, you two found each other." She looked at me. "Be careful, Stellina. Love in his world is complicated, beautiful but complicated." "We're not." "Yet," she interrupted, smiling. "But you will be, I see it." After we left, Alessandro drove in silence for a while, processing. I let him be, understanding he'd just revealed something vulnerable. We ended up at a cemetery in Brookline, expensive and well-maintained. He led me to a grave with a simple headstone, Luca Damiani, beloved father and husband. I come here when I need to remember why I'm trying to be different. Alessandro's voice was quiet. He died in prison, serving a sentence for racketeering. He built an empire on fear and took, and in the end it destroyed him. I'm sorry. Don't be, he made his choices. Alessandro turned to face me. But he also loved your grandmother once truly, and that love made him capable of moments of genuine goodness. I'm trying to build a life on those moments, not the darkness. Is that why you helped me? Initially, yes, for his memory for a debt. But now, he touched my face. Now it's because I see in you what he saw in her, strength that doesn't need to prove itself, kindness that isn't weakness, fire that warms instead of burns. You barely know me. I know enough. He kissed me, gentle this time, like sealing a promise. And I want to know everything. But Lucia, you need to understand what you're choosing. My life isn't simple. Even as I move toward legitimacy, the past follows. There are people who want to hurt me who'd use you to do it. Rossi is just the beginning. I'm not afraid. You should be. A little fear keeps you careful. He pulled me close, his chin resting on top of my head. But I'm glad you're not running. I don't think I could let you go now even if you wanted to. Is that a threat? It's an admission I'm not as noble as I pretend. He stepped back, his expression serious. I'm falling for you, Lucia. Past tense might already be accurate, and men like me, we don't love lightly. We consume, we possess, we protect until it feels like prison. Then don't, I said simply. Love me without consuming me. Trust me to stay because I choose to, not because you've trapped me. Is it that easy? No, but it's possible. I took his hand. Your father failed with my grandmother because his family made him choose between love and power. You don't have to make that choice. You can have both if you build it right. Wise beyond your years. Raised by a woman who loved a man like you, I smiled. I know the pitfalls, but I also see the possibility. He kissed me again, and this time it felt like falling, terrifying and exhilarating and inevitable. We stayed at the cemetery until the winter sun started to set, talking about everything and nothing. He told me about growing up watching his father navigate two worlds, about the promise he'd made at this graveside to be better. I told him about dreams deferred, about learning to survive in a city that didn't see people like me as anything but service staff. By the time we left, something had shifted. We were no longer boss and employee navigating attraction. We were two people who decided to try building something real, dangerous, and hopefully extraordinary. Come home with me tonight, Alessandro said as we drove back toward the city. Not for anything physical, just to talk more, to be together without the performance. Where's home? Beacon Hill, an apartment my father bought before he died. It's where I go when I need to remember I'm human, not just the business. I should have said no, should have maintained boundaries, protected myself. But Nana's words echoed, you will be. Okay, I said, take me home. His smile was worth every risk I was taking. Alessandro's apartment was a top-floor unit in a converted townhouse, all exposed brick and tall windows. It was elegant but lived in, with books scattered everywhere and art that looked chosen for love rather than investment. It's beautiful, I said, running my fingers along a bookshelf filled with Italian literature. It's real. He shrugged off his coat, suddenly looking younger without the armor of his suits. Everything else is performance. Here I can breathe. He opened wine, built a fire, and we settled on opposite ends of his couch, close but not touching, talking while the city glowed beyond his windows. Tell me something true, I said, something you've never told anyone. He considered. I'm terrified I'll become my father, that no matter how hard I try, the violence and control are in my blood, that one day I'll wake up and realize I've built the same empire with better PR. And what would you do if that happened? Walk away, burn it down if I had to. He met my eyes. I won't become him, Lucia, I can't. You won't, I said with certainty I hadn't known I felt. Because you're asking the question, he never did. We talked for hours. About his childhood watching his father's dual life. About my years watching wealthy people from behind a service counter. About dreams and fears and the future we were both improvising. Somewhere around midnight, I fell asleep on his couch. I woke to find him carrying me to his bedroom, his movements gentle. Sleep, he murmured, setting me down on soft sheets. I'll take the couch. Stay, I caught his hand. Just sleep, I don't want to be alone. He hesitated, then kicked off his shoes and lay down beside me, still fully clothed. I curled into his warmth, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat slow into sleep. For the first time since my grandmother got sick, I felt safe. When I woke, pale winter light was streaming through the windows, and Alessandro was watching me with an expression that made my breath catch. Morning, he said softly. Morning. I stretched, aware of how intimate this was, waking in his bed, morning light, the barriers between us dissolving. You didn't have to stay. I wanted to. His fingers traced patterns on my arm. I've had a lot of women in my life, Lucia. None of them made me want to just sleep beside them and count it as a perfect night. Is that what this was? Yes, he kissed my forehead. And I know we're moving fast, probably too fast, but I don't want to slow down, not with you. Neither do I. We stayed like that, wrapped in each other and morning quiet, until his phone shattered the moment with its insistent buzzing. His expression went cold as he read the screen. Rossi is making his move. What happened? He's filed a formal complaint with the Financial Crimes Unit claiming I'm laundering money through art sales. It's bullshit, but it'll trigger an investigation. He sat up, already in business mode. I need to meet with my lawyers. This changes everything. How? He looked at me, conflict clear in his face. Because now you need to disappear from my life, at least publicly. If investigators start digging, anyone associated with me becomes suspect. Your grandmother's care, this apartment, it could all look like payment for illegal services. We haven't done anything illegal. That won't matter if they want to build a case. He stood, packing. Rossi is smart. He's not trying to prove I'm criminal, he's trying to make me look criminal. There's a difference. So what do? We get ahead of it. I have a lawyer who specializes in this kind of reputation warfare. But Lucia, he stopped, his hands gentle on my shoulders. This might mean you stepping back, not from the job necessarily, but from me personally, at least until the investigation clears. And if it doesn't clear, then I walk away from you completely, because I won't let you get destroyed by my past. I understood what he was offering, protection at the cost of what we just started building. It should have felt noble. Instead, it felt like abandonment. No, I said. Lucia. No, you don't get to decide. I'm too fragile for this. I stood facing him. I signed the contract knowing the risks. If there's an investigation, we handle it together, transparently, legally, correctly. But you don't push me away to protect me. That's not how this works. I'm trying to do the right thing. The right thing is trusting me to make my own choices. I crossed my arms. I'm not your father's lost love, Alessandro. I'm not someone who needs saving. I'm your partner in this, or I'm nothing. Choose. He stared at me, something like awe in his expression. You realize you're terrifying. Good, you need someone terrifying. He laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. Okay, we handle it together, but we do it smart, everything documented, everything legal, everything above board. Agreed. He pulled me close, his forehead resting against mine. When this is over, when Rossi is handled and the investigation cleared, I'm taking you away somewhere warm. Just us, no business, no danger. Deal. Deal. His kiss was fierce, claiming a promise sealed. Then his phone rang again, and we both knew the war was about to begin. The next week was a blur of lawyers and accountants, depositions and documentation. Alessandro's entire business empire was being dissected, every transaction examined, every relationship questioned. He handled it with controlled fury, turning over records, providing explanations, building a case for his legitimacy that was ironclad. I stayed visible and professional, attending meetings as his translator and cultural consultant. The investigators noted my presence, interviewed me separately. I told them the truth, hired for language skills, paid appropriately, no illegal activity witnessed. Your grandmother receives expensive medical care, one investigator noted, funded by Mr. Damiani. Yes, he's covering it as part of my benefits package. It's documented in my contract. I held her gaze. My grandmother knew his father years ago. When he found out she was ill, he chose to help. That's compassion, not bribery. She didn't look convinced, but she couldn't prove otherwise. Meanwhile, Rossi was escalating. He hired a PR firm, leaked stories to sympathetic journalists, painted Alessandro as a criminal hiding behind art dealing and wine imports. The irony was that Alessandro's businesses were actually legitimate. He'd spent years cleaning up his father's legacy, moving everything into legal channels. "He's trying to drag me back into the mud," Alessandro said one night, exhausted. We were in his office, surrounded by legal files. "Even if I prove everything's clean, the stain remains." "Then we don't just prove it's clean, we prove he's dirty." "What do you mean?" "We investigate Rossi, find out what he's hiding, because nobody fights this hard unless they're protecting something." Alessandro's smile was sharp. "I like how you think." He hired a forensic accountant, a former FBI investigator who specialized in financial crimes. Within 3 days, she found irregularities in Rossi's businesses, shell companies, questionable transactions, patterns that suggested actual money laundering. "He's projecting," the investigator said, "accusing you of what he's actually doing, classic misdirection." "Can we prove it?" "With time, and you'll need to be careful. If we push too hard, he might destroy evidence." Alessandro looked at me. "Your call. Do we go after him or do we just defend?" I thought about Nana, about the life Alessandro was trying to build, about the future that Rossi was trying to destroy out of petty rivalry. "We go after him," I said, "but we do it legally. We don't become him to beat him." "Agreed." The trap was elegant. Alessandro's lawyer contacted the Financial Crimes Unit with concerns about Rossi's businesses, providing just enough information to trigger their own investigation. Meanwhile, we continued cooperating fully with the investigation into Alessandro, building a paper trail of transparency. Rossi didn't see it coming. He was too focused on destroying Alessandro to notice his own empire being examined. 3 weeks after the initial complaint, both investigations came to a head. The Financial Crimes Unit cleared Alessandro completely, all businesses legitimate, all transactions legal, no evidence of wrongdoing. The complaint was dismissed as malicious. And Rossi was arrested for actual money laundering, tax evasion, and fraud. The timing was almost poetic. Alessandro took the news with quiet satisfaction, no gloating, just relief. "It's over." "Is it?" I asked. "Professionally, yes. Rossi's businesses are being dismantled. His reputation is destroyed. He'll spend the next decade in legal hell." He pulled me close, and I get to focus on what actually matters. "Which is?" "You building something real, making my father's promise to your grandmother mean something." He kissed me softly, "Being better than the man I was afraid I'd become." We stood in his office overlooking Boston, the city glittering below us like a promise, and I realized we'd survived our first real test. "Take me away," I said, "like you promised, somewhere warm, no business, just us." "Where do you want to go?" "Surprise me." His smile was devastating. Pack for 2 weeks. I'll handle everything else. That night I visited Nana at the hospital. She was stronger now, Dr. Weber's treatments working miracles. She took one look at my face and smiled. He survived his test. We survived it together. Even better, she squeezed my hand. Your grandfather and I had 30 good years, Stelina. We fought, we struggled, but we chose each other every day. That's the secret, not the falling in love, but the choosing to stay. I'm choosing him, Nana. I know, and he's choosing you. That's more than his father and I ever had. No sadness in her voice, just peace. Live your life, sweet girl, be happy. I'll be here when you get back. Promise. Promise. 3 days later, Alessandro and I flew to the Amalfi coast. He'd rented a villa overlooking the Mediterranean, all white stone and bougainvillea, the kind of place that existed outside time. We spent 2 weeks learning each other, morning coffee on the terrace, afternoon swims in the crystalline sea, evening walks through ancient villages. He showed me the Italy of his childhood memories before everything became complicated. I showed him how to be young and foolish and free. One night, sitting on the terrace under stars that seemed close enough to touch, he turned to me with serious eyes. I'm in love with you, Lucia. Past tense, present tense, future tense, all of it. I love you too. I know I'm not easy. I know my life comes with complications, but I promise you this, I will never trap you. I will never make you choose between me and your freedom. You will always have a door you can walk through. And what if I don't want the door? Then I'll spend every day making sure you never regret closing it. He pulled out a small box, velvet and ancient. This was my grandmother's, the only thing my father kept from his old life. Inside was a ring, simple gold, a single small diamond, nothing ostentatious, beautiful in its restraint. It's not an engagement ring, he clarified. Not yet, but it's a promise that when you're ready, when we're ready, I'll ask properly. I let him slide it onto my right hand. I'll wear it as a reminder. Of what? That I chose the storm, and the storm chose me back. We made love that night with the Mediterranean breeze through open windows, gentle and fierce and claiming. Afterward, wrapped in sheets and each other, he whispered secrets against my skin, fears and hopes and dreams for a future built on choice rather than debt. When we returned to Boston, winter had softened into early spring. Nana was home from the hospital, installed in a beautiful hospice suite that Alessandro had arranged, not to die, but to live comfortably with round-the-clock care. You survived Italy, she teased when we visited. Now comes the hard part. What's that? Building a life. That's harder than falling in love, Stelina, but also better. She was right. The next months were about construction, Alessandro expanding his legitimate businesses, me finishing my degree online while working as his full partner. We navigated board meetings and family dinners, cultural events and quiet nights at home. Rossi's conviction made the papers. Alessandro's businesses thrived. We built something real from the ashes of suspicion and threat. 1 year after that cold December night, Alessandro found me in his study reading a book on Renaissance art. He pulled me to my feet, dancing to music only he could hear. Marry me, he said, not a question, a proposal finally. Yes. That was quick. I decided a year ago. I kissed him. I was just waiting for you to catch up. We married that summer in a small ceremony. Just us, Nana, Elena, a few trusted friends. No press, no spectacle, just vows spoken under Tuscan sun in the village where Nana and his father had fallen in love decades before. Full circle, she said, crying happy tears. Better than the first time. 6 months later, Nana died peacefully in her sleep, surrounded by flowers and love, her hand in mine. Alessandro held me through the grief, patient and strong, understanding that some losses reshape you forever. At her funeral, I found a letter she'd left me. Stellina, I'm glad I stayed long enough to see you happy, to see you choose love without losing yourself. You and Alessandro, you're the story his father and I should have been. You're proof that sometimes fate gets it right the second time. Love him fiercely. Fight with him honestly. Never let him forget that you chose him, not his money or his power, but him. That's the gift you give him every day, the knowledge that he's worthy of love without transaction. Be happy, sweet girl, you've earned it. All my love. Nana. 5 years after that first night at Il Diamante, I stood in our Beacon Hill apartment, expanded now, filled with books and art and life. Alessandro came up behind me, his arms wrapping around my waist, his lips finding the spot behind my ear that still made me shiver. Happy anniversary. Which one? Meeting, marriage, or surviving our first year? All of them. He turned me to face him. I have something for you. He handed me a key. What's this? Remember the restaurant, Il Diamante, where we met? Of course. I bought it, renamed it Stella Little Star for you, and I'm making you a partner, 50-50, your vision, our investment. I stared at the key, at this man who'd taken the place where I'd been invisible, and was giving it back as my own. Alessandro, you were right that first night, he interrupted. I don't get to buy you, but I get to invest in you, believe in you, build with you. He kissed me softly. So let's build something beautiful together. I kissed him back, tasting promise and partnership in the future we'd fought for. Together, I agreed. That night we walked through the empty restaurant, planning and dreaming. Where I'd once served water to people who looked through me, I'd now build something that celebrated dignity, creativity, and the invisible people who kept the world running. From cold December night to warm spring evening, from invisible waitress to visible partner, from survival to something better than I dreamed possible. Alessandro caught me smiling. What are you thinking? That your father would be proud, that my grandmother was right, that sometimes the storm isn't something to fear, it's something to choose. And you chose me. Every day, I took his hand, the ring on my finger catching the light. Every day I choose you. We stood in the restaurant that had changed everything, planning a future built on choice and partnership and love that had survived investigations and doubt, and the challenge of becoming better than the people we might have been. Outside, Boston glittered in the spring darkness. Inside, we built our empire, not of fear or control, but of beauty and dignity and the radical act of choosing each other every single day. From invisibility to chosen visibility, from debt to partnership, from one cold night to a lifetime of warmth. Some storms destroy, but some storms, the ones you choose, transform everything. This was ours.